Hello everybody and welcome to my first Wheel of Time video in a little smidgen of time. And today we're going to be talking about 5 little known facts about this Goliath series. With any fantasy epic, there's going to be endless factoids to be discussed. And I've gone through a lot of them that I have found not every fan to be aware of. And of course, I'm going to try and keep this as spoiler-free as I possibly can up until the last fact. There, we're going to have to go into full-on spoiler territory. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk about 5 Wheel of Time things you may not be aware of. Let's just go ahead and get this one out of the way because I posted about it on Twitter and it got quite the reaction. Tarvalon's a vagina. It's a gigantic vagina. That's not even like a maybe thing. That's very intentionally done. It's a city ruled by women in a center of power, ha ha, for the entire Wheel of Time world. As it is the center for magical women to reign from, it only makes sense that I guess in Robert Jordan's mind, it should be a gigantic vagina with 2 rivers around it, certifying it as a WAP and a giant tower sticking out in the middle. It's even phrased like that at one point. And of course, I've had many fans tell me there's a second phallic symbol right next door with dragon mount created by a man in a fit of passion. Don't worry, not all these are quite so crude, but it is one that I always find amazing how many fans look at this map and don't realize it. It's like a 50-50 shot. Half of them go, yeah, I see it. The other half you have to point it out, then they go, oh. But sticking with a theme of gender, this series is actually roughly 50-50 in terms of the point of view between men and women, and does include a small bit of non-binary characters. I'm pulling this from a statistical breakdown article of the Wheel of Time series, and while it does start very much so leaning towards the male side of things, with the first book almost entirely coming from Rand's point of view, it actually then quickly breaks down to the point where for most of the series, up until the last couple of books, women are taking up a majority of the page count, something that is not common for epic fantasy written by men to this day. But it does absolutely make sense though with how many strong female characters take the lead within this whole entire series, many of them taking the lead for some of the most crucial plot lines for the entire Wheel of Time. A lot of people say a lot of things about Robert Jordan's handling of gender and how he was attempting to flip the power dynamics between men and women, where more often than not the leaders of society and those in the greatest positions of control were women. But hey, whether you like or not what he did there, you have to at least acknowledge the fact that Robert Jordan did represent women more often as the series went on, and to certain points where it was the vast majority of the page counts of some books. Let's break away from that kind of talk though and get into the fact that the Wheel of Time in its original concept was a lot weirder and a lot more sci-fi. Not even joking. This was full-on sci-fantasy at one point, and let's break it down. Well, let's first acknowledge the fact that there are certainly still sci-fi elements in play within the Wheel of Time world. Vague, mild spoiler about the world here, but yes, this is a post-apocalyptic Earth. It was just much more overt in its initial conceptions. I'm pulling this from specific articles from Word Zone, which I was a bit hesitant in fully believing, but as I saw Brandon Sanderson commenting on the article and not disagreeing anything within it, and him having seen Robert Jordan's notes throughout the entire process, I do have faith that what we're seeing here is completely accurate, because if there's anyone who's going to know to contradict this, it will be Sanderson himself. But Robert Jordan originally actually was planning on having the Dark One being more of an alien Dark Lord, name Sakan. Yeah, that was a bit more of an overt reference there too, wasn't it? This alien warlord is trying to take over Earth, but he was stopped due to the 7 eyes of the world, not 1, and he had minions that were half human, half demons called the Forsaken. I guess this kind of eventually split off into Trollocs, but he also kept the Forsaken. Rhys Althor was the chosen one, R-H-Y-S, in this slightly more obvious post-apocalyptic Earth. And just as that name is not too different from Rand al'Thor, but definitely has a different tone to it, getting into all the fun little factoids around the Wheel of Time provides an entirely different story with quite a bit of the same elements at its core. Now let's actually get into the fact that in this same vein, it was actually originally a lot more grimdark. The Wheel of Time was going to be a lot more sex, violence, and just brutality heavy than what the final product was. Getting into just some of the details here, apparently Rhys al'Thor was going to be an older soldier type character who actually ended up sleeping with a queen named Morghese, driving her son crazy and pushing him to the shadow. Ooh, sex, scandal. None of that except for some names still exist in the Wheel of Time. Gentling was going to be a lot more akin to a lobotomy combined with an actual, let's call it not friendly sterilization, maybe? Just a lot of elements like that were kind of diluted and pulled back and turned into the much more family-ish friendly version of the Wheel of Time we see now. Though I also think this lends to the almost two sides of the Wheel of Time that still exist within the main series. Yes, Robert Jordan does not focus on brutality like a lot of other authors do, but there's absolutely still R-rated moments throughout the entire Wheel of Time. And there's an argument to be made that, hey, if Amazon does do their show in more of a grim, dark fashion, it's actually kind of true to a more original Wheel of Time way Robert Jordan pictured his series going. You know, they would also just have to inject a lot more sci-fi to it and renamed Rand Rise, however the hell you'd pronounce that. Let's just stick with the Wheel of Time series as stands. Though, I'd love to bring Robert Jordan back to life and see this original vision and see how crazy it really got. As Raya Althor goes against Sakan! Let's get into one of the most substantial changes here, though, and that's going to be the fact that there was actually originally a fourth member of the Triumvirate. Mat, Rand, and Perrin are a famous trio from the Wheel of Time that almost every hardcore fantasy fan knows. Did you know, though, that three-legged stool was originally going to be four, kind of undoing some of the metaphors they talk about later on in the series? Daniel Lewin was going to have a much larger role. Robert Jordan wanted him to be actually taking off with the party from the Two Rivers. But after some later drafts of Eye of the World, he realized just how little that character was actually going to be doing for a lot of the story. So he ended up just lifting him out, and not much needed to be changed. I am happy to say we still see Daniel Lewin playing a role later on in the series, and while he's not coming to the forefront of being one of the most recognizable characters within fantasy literature, he gets the respect he's due. Love you, Daniel. You're a good boy. I don't know why I talked to him like he was a dog there. And here for the final thing you might not know about the Wheel of Time, we need to get full on into spoilers. So I'm sorry, we have to get into story elements taking place late on in the series, revolving around a specific Mazarim Taim. So if you have not finished all these books, I would recommend clicking off now, leaving a like and subscribing. Thank you. And let's go ahead and jump on into spoiler territory. Now everyone knows who killed Asmodean. It was Grendel, except man, before that was confirmed, there was a lot of speculation online that it was actually Taim who did so, and the fans know originally Taim was planned to reveal to be Demon Dread. While that plan was still in place for Taim to be revealed to be Demon Dread, he was also planned to be the one who had actually killed Asmodean. Up until after that book was published, yes, when Robert Jordan wrote and published the scene where Asmodean was murdered, he was writing Taim/Demon Dread doing it. Except later on, when he changed his mind and backtracked on the whole idea of Taim turning out to be the Forsaken, it was then retconned to be Grendel. So for all of you Wheel of Time fans out there who spent so much time speculating and theorizing, hey, this had to be Taim for these reasons, you were right! And it wasn't until Robert Jordan saw an alternative theory posted by a fan that he went, oh, that's better if it's Grendel, and went in that direction. To me, this also suggests to a Wheel of Time fan that we may have seen a version of the last battle where Shara was not involved at all. It would be interesting to see a more self-contained version of the Westland's final fight, but we will never know what could have been, because Shara comes into play rather jarringly, and now knowing how this kind of was a last-minute change, it makes sense. And hey, bonus fact for you, Shan-Chan actually in Robert Jordan's mind was a much larger empire, reflecting like the global expanse of the British Empire. But the man who drew the maps made Shan-Chan kind of look like a smaller collection of islands and didn't have this massive continental expanse, so it was reduced down to just an island-based empire that apparently has an extraordinary capability of drumming up a massive military force to take on a larger, substantially larger Westlands. So this has been 5 things and a couple bonus you may not have known about the Wheel of Time. I'll of course have my sources linked down below. I have a statistical analysis of the Wheel of Time I love, one of my favorite articles ever done about the series. Massive shout out to those who did that, and an article from Word Zone that is definitely worth checking out that Sanderson himself has apparently read and not corrected based off some comments on Reddit. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and have a good one, y'all. Peace. It's good to be getting back to Wheel of Time content.